Going to be replacing front pads and rotors on a BMW X3. This would be the same for an E46, E39, or E38, 5 or 7 series. And very common on most BMWs except for the new F series rear pads that have the electronic e-brake. So it's very similar to front and rear pads on any BMW. The rear does have the e-brake, so sometimes that holds you back, the internal shoes. But today I'm going to be doing the front brakes, and I just want to go over the tools that you're going to need. You're going to need 17 millimeter for the lugs. I have a torque wrench and a brush. You need a 16 for the caliper bracket. You're going to need a 6 millimeter. That's for the hold down screw for the rotor. And a 7 millimeter. That's going to be for the slider. Make sure you have a wrench, a screwdriver to push the pads back. I'm going to just use a pair of large channel locks to push the caliper piston back. Nice to have a big hammer. Sometimes the rotors don't want to come off. And that's pretty much it. You don't really need that many things to replace your front brakes on a BMW. That would be pads and rotors. Now there is some prep work that you're going to want to do. I have these pads set up, and I have my brake paste. This is the BMW brake paste. You can use other styles of brake paste. Now this is like an anti-squeal, so this actually stops brake noises. You want to put it around where the caliper piston sits. So you can put it all on the entire backing plate. You don't want to put any of this grease on this surface here. This is the pad surface. You want to keep this clean and dry. You also want to make sure that you put this paste on the portions that touch on the bracket. So I like to put it on all the corners. And that's just a preliminary step. Do the same thing with the other ones. You could put it on the entire backing, or you could just do it around where right around here where the caliper piston would contact. Make sure to hit the corners. Do this with all four. A little colder today than I thought it was going to be, but still it's getting a little bit nicer out. Hopefully I'll be able to get back to my E46 3 Series project car and check timing and pull the cylinder head off for overheating. Get my the sides here. Okay, so this is just preparing the pads. Alright, that's all set. Next I'm going to prepare the rotors. I like to take some brake clean, and I do recommend always using BMW parts and clean the friction surface where the pad's gonna ride. Just wipe it down with brake clean. Do both sides. Sometimes when you purchase these, if you're not going to use BMW products, they can have some grease on them to prevent them from rusting, and you don't want that grease to contact your pads. So do this to both. Be careful not to drop them so you don't warp the rotors. Same thing. Wipe down the surface. Okay. Now my prep work is done, and I'm ready to start taking apart the brakes. Alright, about ready to start. I just wanted to note for those of you that like specific specs that the wheels are tightened to 150 Newton meters. The sliders for the guide bolt is 30 Newton meters, and the caliper bracket that actually mounts the caliper to the hub assembly is 110 Newton meters. If I put this in one of the vents, I can remove the locating screw easier so it applies tension. This is the 6mm. Push back on the spring, remove the spring. I like to just get in here and angle towards me. This is actually a broken flathead because I've used it too many times to push pads back. The steering wheel's locked. Let me turn it so it can see better. Okay. You have these two caps on the sliders here, one on the top and there's one on the bottom. So hopefully you can see that. Take these caps off. Using the 7mm, I'm going to just lift the cap off and I pop the This is the sensor, which I'm going to replace. Alright, break this free. Take my slider out. This is the slider or guide bolt. You want to lube this up before you slide it in. Get the bottom one. Remove both those. The caliper comes right off. You can just push the pads back. Like that. And I'm going to replace the sensor. Pop this sensor out. Pop the pad out first, just pull that out that way. The sensor's probably going to fight me. There we go. Okay, that's pads, get that out of the way. The sensor just routes, I'll do that last. Okay, here's the caliper. I'm going to take my adjustable pliers here. They sell some cool tools that will also compress the piston for you, make it easier, but this works just as good. Keep an eye on your brake fluid reservoir to make sure it doesn't overflow, especially if you've just done a brake flush. Okay, I'm good on my level up there. That's compressed back. Next I have to do the bracket. Now those are 16s. I'm gonna break them free. Oh, jeez. Realize it would be so tight. There we go. Top and bottom. Okay. Now, a lot of times the rotor is stuck. You can measure them, obviously. There's a minimum spec that's going to be stamped on the rotor itself. This is 23.4 millimeters thickness at the lowest spot, but a lot of times it's better just to replace them. I've had a lot of problems where you'll end up with a vibration. You'll get maybe a quarter way through your pads, the rotors will warp from heat, and then you have to do pads and rotors all over again. So I'm just going to take a hammer and hit the backside and pop that right off. Okay, I'm going to take a wire brush, make sure the hub is clean. Okay, brush your contacts on the bracket where the pads rest, here and here. For the bracket itself, this is where the pad sits. You can put some lube on there as well, but take a brush, make sure you can see that. Let's see, where is that? Flip this around so I can see what I'm doing here. Alright. Oh, gotta go that way. Okay. Take a wire brush and just brush this area here. Pads have to move. They are a floating pad. You want to clean that up. That's why I lube the pad side up, so that my contacts are already going to be all set and ready to go. Alright, going together. There's my location screw. Use some copper anti-seize and put a little bit. That's a big glob. Try to put a little bit. This is a new bottle. On the threads. That'll make it easier to come off next time. Alright. Now, you can actually put some along here too. So that you don't need a lot. But that way it does make it easier to take this off next time. Just turn it until that location screw lines up. This doesn't take much to tighten. I did note the specs earlier, but I've been doing brakes for a long time, so I know the feel. A lot of times you can just do a tap because there's not much that needs to hold that in place. These came off kind of hard, so I'm going to just put a little bit of anti-seize, not a lot, because these, obviously you don't want them to come out. You want them to be good and tight. I think it's 130 newton meters or something like that. You can also take the copper anti-seize and put it onto the contact points for the sliders. And here if you want. Just a thin layer. Okay. Take my bracket. Install my bracket on. Line it up. Keep the surface of the rotor clean. If you do get a little bit of some anti-seize or anything on there, you can go ahead and clean it with brake clean before installing the Okay, these are good and tight. Now, that's about 110 newton meters, or about 82 foot-pounds to tighten. And this is kind of a long torque wrench. There we go. 110. Make sure. Okay. Take your pad, inner first. This is the clip portion that pushes in. Lock that into place. Take the other pad and rest it. Okay. Make sure you're not twisted here, and just popped off on me. Oh, doesn't want to fit. That's because that piston probably can go back a little bit more. Let's see what we got. Oh yeah. Yep, not enough clearance. Must be a little lip there on this caliper. It went easy, and then there we go. That should be fully back. That looks a lot better. Pop that on. Okay. You can use copper or the same slider or anti-squeal grease for the sliders. I'm going to use the anti-squeal grease. Put that on the sliders and push them into the boot. Usually you can feel it. You hear that? Yeah, you can feel the threads kind of engage. And that's the 7 mil. These are just snug, about 30 Newton meters, I think. There we go. Don't forget to put your caps back on. And make sure you can see that. The clip needs to get installed. Start it just like this, rest it here and here. You can actually put a little bit of anti-seize where it rubs for noise prevention, and then from here just push the spring clip. Once you're pretty much on, a lot of times it just takes, this one didn't go, just a little tap. Where's my screwdriver? There it is. There we go. Make sure that's seated. Okay, clean off the rotor. Make sure it didn't get any grease on it. Two. Okay. Alright, now the sensor. Let's reposition this a bit. Let's see. Sensor goes up this way, behind the strut, around to a little box right back here. Alright, there's the box. It's a clip here and here. Open that up. The blue is the ABS sensor. Pop that up. Alright, that goes that way. Let's route it behind here. Okay. There's a tab here. Push that. Slide it off. Now to reset the brake light, if it's on, just push this back on. Run it up this way. Just have to leave the key in the second position on, in the second position, and it, resets itself in a minute. This goes up here. Push that, close that. Now this wasn't quite touching. My friend wanted to get these done before he had the light come on. There's another holder back here. So these weren't quite due. They were just getting a little close. Okay. Make sure to move over here. Put the cap piece over the bleeder screw. There we go. And then this just is a nipple end here that goes towards the side that's going to get worn down. As that wears down, it's going to trip your light. So, let's see. There's a little notch there for it. I like to take a screwdriver and just push it in, make sure it's seated, give it a little tug, check your routing, and then general rule of thumb, touch everything you touch and go over it, right? Sliders tightened, main caliper bracket tightened, sensor is routed, springs on, pads are good, rotor and location screw, good. So everything's tight, secure. Let me go ahead and put the wheel on. Okay, put the wheel on. I like to take a lug, rest it in a socket. Line it up. Use that to help you feed it on. Make sure to always start these by hand so you don't cross thread anything. $150 Nm for the tightening torque, which I always like to do. I don't like to trust the gun. Now to tighten this, I do need to lower it down. So I'm going to take my jack out on this side. Slowly. Lower the wheel down so it contacts. And then tighten down. Basically the same procedure on the other side. You don't have a sensor, so you don't have to worry about that. And good to go. Now you can stop there if that's good. I'm going to do the other side too, so I'm going to lift this back up so I can turn the rotor if I need to. My jack stand back under and switch to the other side. Okay, now for this side, same procedure. Here, set screw. My brakes went on my Sierra. My brake line blew coming off an exit on the highway. Thankfully I didn't get into an accident, but I found so much rust under my 2004 Sierra I had to replace all the brake lines. It was a pain. Reflare everything at the ABS pump underneath, and got that baby fixed, and due to the rust I'm going to trade it in and put a little bit of anti-seize. Take my retaining spring off. Okay. Push the pad back. Remember to keep an eye on that fluid level in the reservoir. Might need to take some out for this side. Okay. Turn this so you can see. Make sure that looks good. Yep. All right. Take these clips off. These are $7 mil. Break them free. See, they actually break free pretty easy. That's why I could take them off using air with not much effort. Okay, Slider. Slider. Okay. 1, 2. Same thing, compress caliper piston. Always check your boots here too, make sure that nothing's leaking. If it is, the caliper needs to be replaced. I'm only going to go part way because I got to check the fluid. Probably have to take some out. Alright, I took some of the fluid out because when I'm compressing the caliper piston, it was getting to the full mark on the reservoir. A lot of times if a brake flush is done, it'll be more full, and when you displace the piston into the caliper, the fluid can overflow and actually drip down and make a mess, and brake fluid is corrosive, so you don't want that on your paint. Okay, next thing is the 16 mil caliper bracket, and break that free. Okay, once that's broken free, switch to air if you have it. Okay, it's down. Locator's out. Put some anti-seize. Okay, make sure to brush off the bracket just like I did on the other side. Take some copper anti-seize and put it at the contact points. Okay. Okay. Install the locator screw. Put a little bit of anti-seize, just a little bit on the threads here because they're hard coming out on the bottom. A little bit of corrosion there. Okay, caliper bracket. These are pretty tight. Keep in mind, 110 Newton meters. Okay. Hit them by hand first. It's easier because I'm going down instead of pulling up. Maybe one day I'll have a bigger garage where I can actually put a lift in it. That's the dream. Alright, 110 Newton meters. Yep. Got that torque right. Okay. Perfect. Okay, pad on the inner. Okay, let that hang. There we go. Other pad, just have to rest right against the rotor. Take the caliper and mate them up. Maybe that can go a little bit more. Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay. Sliders. Okay, the sliders put the same anti-seize disc quiet material. Now if you're buying the disc quiet material from a parts store, you're better off using copper, I think, on here, because you don't want it to be too tacky. It has to slide. The BMW stuff does not harden. It just reduces any kind of oscillation vibration, which is a fancy way of saying a noise. The noises that you hear from brake pads, that squealing, is really the pads vibrating. The vibration creates the noise. Snug those down. Don't forget your caps. Don't forget your spring. Your pads won't wear correctly. There we go. And done, except for the break-in, which is just some light braking just to seat the pad in when it's all done. You do want to drive a little cautiously when you first install your brake pads. I think on the little paper that comes with the BMW pads it says, you know, cautious driving for the first 200 miles. So next, just install the wheel. My lugs. Now remember to step on the brake pedal before you put it into gear, because you have to basically reseat the caliper to the piston, so there's going to be a little bit of a gap there. Never seen it done, but I've heard of horror stories where people hit things because they forgot to prime the brake pedal. So, and a rule of thumb is just a good idea. Now again, resetting the brake pad light. If yours was on, just leave the key on in the second position, engine not running. It takes a minute or two. The instrument cluster does a self-check, sees that the signal isn't open anymore, and go ahead and tells it to shut down the light. Your brake pad sensors are located in the front left and right rear on all BMWs. Lower this down and tighten it up, and I'm good to go. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful.